name, and I'm glad I didn't say it. So, Jennifer's from the SMART program, and let me just read a little bit about SMART and what they do. In 1991, a group of concerned business leaders led by Governor Neil Goldschmidt came together to address the troublesome reality that Oregon's children were routinely reading to the grade level. SMART's Reading Unique model was developed, blending early childhood reading support, adult mentorship, and community engagement to positively impact literacy outcomes. The program launched in 1992 in 8 schools in 2 cities, serving 585 children. Since their inception, they have served more than 373,000 children and given away over 4 million books. More than 147,000 volunteers have logged 4.5 million hours reading with children across the state. Here, the Smart Reading Career Central Oregon area team implements smart reading programs and raises funds to support smart reading in Central Oregon. In the 2023-24 school year, they served 1,079 pre-K through 3rd grade students and gave away 14,806 books. They are focused on recruiting more volunteers and establishing strong financial support among their communities to ensure they can continue to do this important work of empowering local children through reading. And with that, Ms. Jennifer, will you please come tell us more about SMART?
Well, you covered some of the history for me already. That was wonderful. But like she said, early 90s is when SMART started, and it actually started in the Portland area and Central Oregon. So we've been in Central Oregon. This is going into our 33rd year. The 4 original schools we still serve 3 of them. Lapine Elementary, Bear Creek in Bend, Sisters Elementary, and then we served Evergreen here in Redmond, which doesn't exist anymore. But 3 of the 8 original schools, or at least 3 of the 4 here in Central Oregon, we still serve and the programs at, which is really cool. Our mission is to spark joy and opportunity through the magic of a shared book. We do not teach reading. We're not tutors. We don't necessarily consider our volunteers mentors, even though they really do have that sort of role. We are simply there to make reading fun and exciting and help kids grow in confidence in reading. Our volunteers are not trained reading specialists. I'm not a trained reading specialist. We just know that if kids are enjoying an activity like reading and they're having fun with it, that they're more likely to continue doing it. For those of you, I see several familiar faces, so you've probably heard me talk about this before, but the 3rd grade reading benchmark is really critical for kiddos. 3rd grade is where kids stop learning to read and they start reading to learn. So at that point, there's this really stark line of a kid should be here, and if they're not here, there's loads of research that shows kids who aren't reading at 3rd grade, at that 3rd grade benchmark, are less likely to graduate high school. They're more likely to be incarcerated. They're more likely to have teen pregnancies. There's all these health disparities that go along with that 3rd grade reading benchmark. And so our goal, we really focus pre-K to 3rd grade. Here in Central Oregon, we mostly read with pre-K and kindergarten students. We are guests in the school, so we have to sort of be invited in. Here in Redmond, we read at Hugh Hartman Elementary. We were there previously when it was Relk, and before that, we've been in several different schools in Redmond. The school typically tells us who they want us to read with. We, here in Central Oregon, not around the state, this isn't necessarily the case, but here in Central Oregon, if we're reading in a school, we're likely reading to an entire grade of students, so that every kid in that grade gets to participate. And the school usually tells us which grade that is, or if it's, they maybe only have one class, we might serve multiple grades, it kind of depends. At Hugh Hartman, we read to every single kindergartner there, in both their standard community kindergarten classrooms and their immersion classrooms. And let's see. We provide all of the books All of the materials, like I said, for guests in the schools. We have a variety of books in our program. We have your standard, super popular, high interest books. Anybody that is around young kids probably know Pete the Cat and Piggy and Elephant, very popular. We have what we call nonfiction or informational text, so any book that is, nonfiction. We've got fun ones like Triceratops versus Spinosaurus, like who would win in a fight between the two, which is
Spinosaurus, pretty much.
I mean, look at the ending. It covers a variety of topics from animals, weather, cities, skyscrapers. I mean, it's the whole gamut. We have dual language books. Most of our dual language books are in Spanish, but we do have some in other languages as well. We also have just straight Spanish books, especially for like our program. We serve the dual immersion classrooms here at Hartman and in a few other schools, so that if the kiddos that we're serving, maybe their family speaks Spanish, they can bring this book home and their families can read it to them, even if their volunteer maybe doesn't speak Spanish during the program. We also have, new this year, we have joke books. Very popular. There are entire books just full of jokes. But we also, yeah, I'm really
waiting for it.
Maybe he needs someone to read it.
I should have brought one. It's very popular. But these past 2 years, we have books that I have never seen in our program before. I've been with Smart 8 years, but they're wordless books. And I will tell you that our volunteers were really kind of scared of these at the beginning because they're like, how do I read a wordless book? And these books became our most popular books. This book 2 years ago won our book award. Every year we select 5 to 6 books, and every kiddo reads them and they vote on which one is their favorite. And Chalk won. It literally has no words, just pictures, and you get
Chris
to
likes
make up
those, yeah.
Yeah, you get to make up the story. That just means you're creative.
I guess so.
It's just really fascinating that these became so popular. And this past year we had even more, and we couldn't keep them on the shelf. And then we also have what we call mirror window books. So mirror books are books that a child would read and the story would reflect their own experiences, environment, culture. And then the window books is they would read a book and they would see experiences, cultures, environment that aren't like their own. So we have a variety of those as well. So for our books, kids in the program it's really child-led. They get to pick what books they're reading week after week, which can be a little tiresome for anyone that's volunteered. The kid finds a book that they love and you read it every single week. But there's research that shows that's really actually positive for the kid to read the story. But they also get to choose books to take home and keep and build their own personal libraries. And that's the two things that SMART does, like the two sort of pillars that we stand on is the shared reading time and the books to keep. With those two things, with access to books and shared reading time, kiddos are more likely to reach that 3rd grade benchmark and become lifelong learners. So we gave away, I think Michelle said, we gave away last year almost 15,000 books. This year we're expecting to read to just a few more kiddos than we did this year. We're adding a program. So we're thinking we'll give away close to 15,000 books this year. Like I said earlier, we provide all of these books. We do that based on generous donations from individuals, organizations, businesses. We hold one fundraising event a year. It's called the Smart Sip. This year it's going to be on March 6th, 2025 at Tetherow Resort. And it's just a really fun, it's not like a stuffy sit-down gala with a paddle raise or anything like that. It's just a really fun cocktail-style event that raises just awareness for our organization and funds. One of the exciting things that I don't think I talked about last year because it was still in the works, in 2022, SMART merged with the Book Bank, which was an organization that was only operating in Multnomah County in the Portland area. And what they do is they harvest, they call harvesting books, they collect books, they get book donations, they clean and restore them. It's a very thorough, amazing process where they go through literally every single page of a book that's donated and they clean it. They take pages if they need, if there's little tears. Depending on the book, they even have folks like redraw the covers. It's a very beautiful, amazing process. And then they take those books and once they're clean and as like new as possible, and they redistribute them out into the community. So we have, the goal of merging was to expand their services, and that's something that we're really excited about here in Central Oregon. Last year we did our first sort of book drive or book harvest for that process. We did a mini cleaning with a donor who was like, we're going to do a book drive and we want our employees to clean the books and experience it. So we sort of are dipping our toes into it. But it's a way to get more books to more kids that we're not able to serve with our traditional like one-to-one reading program. And it's the environmental like sustainability aspect of like a lot of these books would just be either thrown away or dropped off at Goodwill, and they may or may not see the shelf. So we're really working to keep more books out of the landfill and get them back into the hands of kids. So last year we sort of dipped our toe into it, and this year we're hoping to do even more of the collecting and the cleaning so that we can have a nice collection of books to then do like free book fairs at schools that we're not able to serve. And we only serve like pre-K to 3rd grade, but that program, they can serve, really from pre-K to adults if they wanted. They really focus on pre-K to 8th grade, so like young adult style books, because that's typically what is being donated. But we're really excited about the potential for that, and then expanding our services to even more schools and more kids than we're able to serve. That's really the SMART program. We read here in Kew Hartman for anybody who might be interested. Last year, unfortunately, our reading time was Wednesdays from 12 to 1. This year, we have not met with them yet to select the day and time. It will likely be Wednesdays just because most schools love Wednesdays because it's an early release day. But the time is still up in the air. So, if you're interested in reading, I have some information. We also have programs at Terrebonne, Sisters, Tumalo, Crimeville. We've got 23 sites for y'all to choose from if you're interested. Or if you're interested in learning more about the book bank services and like the book drive and that sort of thing, that's a way for folks to get involved who are like, I can't give an hour every single week, like I just don't have that to commit, but like maybe a one-time group thing is more potential, then we have that option as well. Any questions? Yes?
The schools you go to, do any of the schools review the books you're going to read? And if so, have they ever told you cannot read this particular book?
Good question. They do not typically review the books that we read. We have we have what we call a book committee, and they do a thorough vetting of all of the books to make sure they are age appropriate for the kiddos that we're serving. We have been told that by some schools that they prefer to have certain books in our program that talk about more like things that you would only talk about with your kids. We call them mommy daddy books, like any books that have like I love you. There's like a million books called I love you or something like that. Any book that you wouldn't read, like you wouldn't want a stranger reading with your kid, because in effect our volunteers are strangers at the beginning of the year. So far we haven't had a lot of anything past that. I would say most of the times the schools are really more concerned with, they don't know our volunteers, and they don't know, like, if a kid's gonna ask them a question, they don't know how that volunteer is gonna respond. We train our volunteers, like, you direct everything to the teachers. Like, we're just there for 30 minutes with a kiddo to read to them. If they bring up something that you're like, say, you should talk to your family about that, or talk to a teacher about that. We try to make sure our volunteers understand, like, they're not there to get into anything political, religious, like anything too deep with these kids. It's a fun, positive reading experience. Yeah.
Do you have any statistics on the impact that you've had with the groups of kids that you've worked with in terms of the before and after experience?
We don't have, kind of and no. We don't really get a lot of access to the kiddos that we're reading with. Like, for the most part, we don't even know their last names. We don't get access to any of their reading scores or anything like that prior to our program. I mean, we have the evidence of the schools keep inviting us back, so they must think we're doing something right. We do have, we have an office in Klamath Falls, and our director there, her son just graduated high school, and he was in a SMART school when he was in kindergarten, and she was able to get his classmates from, like, she has a picture, she made this whole document of, she has a picture from his, like, first grade class that they were serving, and she was able to pinpoint, like, all of these kids are going on to do things, and they were all able to say, like, this is how smart reading helped me. And it wasn't all just reading. Some of it was just confidence. Some of it was just one-on-one time with an adult. So we have sort of that anecdotal evidence of, like, we know it works because kids who have been in the program said to us, like, hey, that was really impactful in my life, but we don't have that quantitative, like, reading scores went up X% or anything like that.
So are you targeting specific kids in the elementary school that this one needs more exposure to books?
So we rely on the schools to tell us which kiddos need that support, but we're mostly in either rural schools or Title I schools, and so we work with that school, those principals or those teachers to say, like I said, we do an entire grade. We read to an entire grade. We're not pulling out individual kiddos. So that school tells us, hey, we really think you should read with the first graders. And then we just read with that entire first grade class versus pulling out students. But when SMART started originally, it was very much, we would go to a school and we would say, we're going to read with 25 kids. Tell us the 25 that are going to need it the most. And sometimes it was kids that didn't have access to books, or maybe kids that didn't have just the confidence to read, or a variety of reasons that they were chosen for our program. Yeah.
Is the reason that you're not in every school like a lack of volunteers, or what's the barrier?
Yeah, so there's 2 staff in Central Oregon, and we serve 5.5 counties. So there's a capacity, there's volunteers. In our more rural areas, like Prineville and Madras, not that I would necessarily consider them super rural, super hard to find volunteers in those 2 communities. So it depends, like Redmond, Bend, even the Pine now, like they've got enough people interested that we can usually like fill all of the programs that we're serving. But in some of our further out, we don't have the bodies to do it. We also don't have the funding. We buy all of these books. We do get a really good deal on them. We buy directly from like Scholastic and First Book and Interstate Books. So our average cost of books is about $2.85, I think. Whereas if you went to Target and tried to buy these books, it would be $15, $20. So we get a really good deal, and we're giving away 15,000 of them. So all the things, right? Like more money, more people, more time, all of it. So we try to focus on the schools that are highest need. There's a term called book deserts. So there are several communities in Oregon that are considered book deserts. That means that like they're further than like X number of miles away from a bookstore, or they may have a library, but it's limited access of it's only open 3 days a week or something like that. We've had communities that their entire library has just shut down at some point for various like funding and personnel reasons. So we just try to focus on the areas that are highest need and go from there. Yeah.
If you do a book collection, just piece of information, we have key clubs that we sponsor. We have one here, we have two here in Redmond. And if you need volunteers or kids to do something, you might contact the schools or contact us and we'll contact them, because they could be a source of some assistance to you, particularly if you're going out to harvest books.
Yeah, our key clubs, are those like high school
They're the
age
high
students?
schools.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we would love to have more high school volunteers and involvement, and that's good to know. Yeah.
Sounds that this like some parts of it very similar to the Dolly Parton book program.
Similar in that program, you get a book, you sign up and you get a book once a month. Different in that there's no reading support access, and the child doesn't get to choose the book. It is chosen for them and then just given to them. Yeah, we partner with that program, I think, in the Valley in some ways, but yeah, anything that's going to get more kids more books, we're all for it.
Well, Jennifer, will you stay up here for a moment?
Sure.
As many of you know, we have supported the SMART program for many, many years, and we have, I wish Truman Grandy was here. He's one of our best supporters and reads all the time to the kiddos. But we have a special check for you.
Ooh, a big one.
In the amount of $250, we give annually, and we want to do that while you're here today.
Thank you.
So this is for you.
Yeah.
Here's a little picture.
What about a lot of books?
Yes.
Thank you.
At $285, this will buy some books, you
Yeah.
guys.
It really will.
Thank you very much for being here. Here's the real check, see.
I don't get to keep the big one?
And then also, just a token of appreciation for you coming out today.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Here's the real one.
In honor of our speakers, I think some of you will recognize this one. The more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you'll go.
Dr.
That's
Michelle,
Yes.
if anybody wants to pay their dues today, John or I can take them.
All right, guys, and with that,
Commercial.